Look, I'm a soft touch, you know? I mean, if I think those grandkids want something or need something, I'm going to do my doggonest to give it to them, just like some of you will. The one thing I want to give them, though, more important than a dish of ice cream or whatever they want for Christmas, is I want to give them a country that they can grow up in, be proud of, and prosper in. And folks, if we're not able to turn this direction of our country around and do it pretty quickly, that's not what's going to happen. Nobody can handle $20 trillion of debt that continues to accumulate at the rate it is. They'll never be able to pay it off. If we don't do something that recharges our economy, where people can go to work, get a good job, and make decent money, prepare for the future, lay something back for retirement, then economically the country will begin to so dissipate in its strength. Nobody will be able to survive. The middle class will completely shrink. And historically, when the middle class disappears, when you have vast amounts of people in poverty, and then you have a ruling class with vast amounts of wealth and nothing in between, it is the recipe for revolution. It always has been. It always has been, whether it's in Europe or South or Central America. When that kind of economic climate exists, it is the recipe for revolution. Now, yes, our country was born out of a revolution, but I'm not interested in seeing another one. I'd rather see a revival. Amen. A revival would be better than a revolution. But a revival is not just economic. A revival is also spiritual. And I'm convinced one of the reasons our nation is in trouble because it's lost its heart, its soul, its spirit. We almost never hear anybody say that we ought to have the Ten Commandments on walls everywhere, just as a reminder of who we are. That we ought to remind ourselves, and we ought to teach and ingrain into the next generation that this country would not exist apart from the providence of God. Because it wouldn't. And we're almost ashamed or afraid to say that. I don't know that we're ashamed. I think we're afraid, because we're afraid that if we say that, then somebody's going to either laugh at us or they're going to say that we're trying to inject religion into our culture. Folks, religion has been injected into our culture for all of the 240 years we've existed. It's only recently that we have acted like and pretended as if it's something we need to hide and act as though it's not an important part of who we are as a country. I don't know if you've seen an amazing little video that is kind of going viral on the internet, has been for several months, but it's of a professor at the Harvard School of Business, which is hardly what I would call a fundamentalist Christian school. Last time I checked, Harvard was never classified like that, other than when it was founded, when, by the way, it was founded as a Christian university to train Christian ministers. I think it has kind of gotten away from that. But this Harvard business professor tells the story, it's only about 2 minutes long, of a Chinese economist who had come to study in the United States for a year. And he went to Harvard and he was studying and wanted to find out more about the American economic system and what he could learn from it to take back to China. And the Harvard business professor was talking with this Chinese economist, who, by the way, is an avowed, unrepentant Marxist. So this is not some guy who sees life from the perspective most of us do. And the Harvard professor said, "Tell me, in this year that you have spent here in the United States, what is it that you have learned that perhaps stands out more than anything else about America?" And here's what this Marxist Chinese economist said to it. He said, "What stands out to me more than anything is how dependent your economy is, and the strength of it, on religion." And that startled the Harvard professor. And he said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Because in most countries of the world, people behave the way they behave because the government stands over them and enforces and insists on the behavior. But in your country, religion is such an important part of your way of life that you are governed by your conscience internally more than you are governed by people standing over you with a gun." And this Marxist Chinese economist said, if you ever lose this understanding, then you will become another nation in which the government will be big, out of necessity, and stand over you with a gun to make sure you behave. Well, it goes exactly with what I said in the book that I did a few years ago called Do the Right Thing. And the whole point was this: the best government we will ever have is self-government. The best government, the government that we were supposed to have in America, was self-government. By self-government, I mean that we did what was right, not because we were afraid of getting caught, but because we had a conscience that said that it's better for me as a free person to do what's right than to have someone make me do what's right, and for someone else to define what's right and what's wrong. It would be better that I live by the standards that God gave us, because those are inherently right, rather than by the artificial and superficial standards that somebody gave me. And the result was that we have this incredible form of government that is unique. Never another one like it in the history of mankind.